50 blades of grass, getting all the dirt. Welcome to January 2025 discussion with John Martin, our superintendent. Okay, good morning, John. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us. Few questions have popped up, and I thought we would get started by talking about green number 6. A lot of the members, when they approach that green, they look at it and say, wow, it's really beaten up. I don't think they know the story behind the scenes. So maybe you can share with us what's happening on green 6 and I guess also 11.
Okay, so quite some time ago, I had formed the green committee that will be using a material called PoaCure, which is a chemical known as methiazolin. It just got registered in California in 2023, and it targets specifically annual bluegrass. And the results were that this is going to look a little worse before it gets better, and that we would make the application. It would take a couple of weeks for the plant to absorb the material, do what it has to do. And what they're looking at is the end results of that.
Okay.
So what we're doing in the meantime, bentgrass germinates in mid 50s all the way up to 70 degrees, but the warmer the better. But we're in the process right now of seeding and sanding those spots and plugging, using our nursery to repair some of the larger areas. Along with that, we'll be heavily top dressing those greens. So, that was the plan. I don't think it should be too much of a surprise because it was spelled out what would happen. It was either now or never, and we don't want it to turn into another 13 green, which is kind of an amalgamated, multi, species of POA, I should say. But what will happen from this point forward is we'll be treating those greens, and as well as the larger practice green, the new practice green, with another material called Trim-It, that kind of keeps the POA in check.
So, I think the issue was, I don't think the message was widely known amongst the golf community, and all they reacted to is, wow, this is really beat up. So I can understand the reaction, and now that they have better information, they'll be able to understand what the remedies are. It's interesting too, and we chatted last week, you mentioned to me when I looked at the green when I played this week, it's really hard to see the traditional seed. I guess this seed is very, very small and almost like granular. Is that correct?
The bentgrass seed.
Yes.
Yeah, there's over 1 million seeds per pound.
Yeah. So what may look like just cover with sand, it's really the seed and the mix that's on the greens.
It's the seed and the green sand. We'll be top dressing with the sand that the medium's composed of anyway, that the green is composed of as well.
Great. Good. The second question that came up, and I think maybe you solved the problem, but the green surface was very bumpy, and it almost looked like we had different levels of growth and so on. So what was the cause, and what did you do to correct it, which it seems like you have? They're rolling fast and good now.
Well, prior to that, we had actually juiced up the greens with an amendment and some fertility, along with a fungicide to protect it through the fall. And as we had the rains, we did more brushing of the greens. You have to realize our mowers are over 250 pounds. So we were very aware of that. We didn't want any scalping. I'm primarily talking about the POA greens.
Yes.
The bentgrass greens they're fine as far as that goes. But we had to go in and double groom the greens. We were going to verticut the greens, which really thatches out some of the organic and gets in towards more of the crown. But we decided to double groom the greens, and we just lowered the greens by a hair. We normally cut at 110. We're at 0.105 right now.
Okay. Yeah.
We're continuing our rolling program, our rolling practices on the green as well.
Okay. And like I said, it looks like it was completed and the greens seem to be nice and flat and are rolling really nice. So,
Yeah,
looks,
and as they dry out in this weather, I mean, it's more conducive to those conditions.
yes, okay. Now, don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell to get notified when new podcasts come out. I notice on the next photo we're looking at, you're on the practice screen and you have an instrument. I know we probably addressed this in a podcast maybe a year ago, but maybe you can explain to the golf community what you're doing.
Well, that is a stimp meter, and more or less it's used just to get an idea of how smooth the greens are rolling. Then you come up with a measurement in feet. If someone wants to say how fast a green is, I mean, there it is right there. So, and we're running about 11 right now, which I
Okay.
think for normal play is quite adequate.
What is it during a tournament time? Do you change that at all?
Well, with tournament time, we tend to take a little different approach. We'll be drying out the greens a little more. They're a little bit leaner fertility wise, a little growth wise.
Okay.
We can push them to 12.
Okay. All right, great. All right. Yeah, it looks like that device is set at a certain angle and releases the ball, and then you get the ball rolling out, and it tells you what level or what step level it is.
Right. I mean, if anyone's interested, they can always go to usga.org, and there's all kinds of information on a stimp meter.
Great. Okay, good. John also evaluates the soil by taking some samples and taking a look at the constituency of that sample. Let's take a look.
A sample about 3 to 4 inches down. We include the tops of the plug itself, the core itself.
Can you show me that plug?
Because that is,
Okay, yeah, okay, good. Yes.
so it gives us a good indication where our root mass is as
Yes.
well. And this is the most biologically active part of the profile
Okay.
as far as the POA greens are concerned. We just backfill it with a sieved green sand, not the normal green sand we use for divots. This is actually, we actually take this and sieve this out
Yes.
because it's a little finer, a little more compatible with our soil zone mixture on our
The
greens.
next question.
Okay, great.
What's the status on the wild pigs?
The hunter has stopped his monitoring of the hole on 6, 7, and into 4 where it was before, but he's removed his traps. Once the rains come in, typically the pigs will find their way out. I mean, that was probably the origin of where these hogs came from.
Okay.
They just got trapped in the hills there, couldn't find their way out.
Yeah.
But we just removed those traps last week.
Mm-hmm.
And he had cameras up there. We didn't say anything. The funny thing is, the day we originally were going to reposition those traps, the pig came back just for that one night, and we hadn't seen him since for probably almost 4 weeks.
Well, these pigs, I think they're on email or Instagram, one of those. So they may have picked that up. And the last question is, or area is about the path renovation. I noticed that we have that on the exit path that is next to the driving range. It was dug up, and that pathway had lots of bumps and rises and so on. Do you have any future plans to correct pathways in the near future?
Definitely so. I mean, most of our issues, well, off of Southview Drive there, the issue there was that gets a lot of traffic, especially for events. Big trucks come in.
Yes.
So that's actually a bigger pour. That's probably 5 inches thick with rebar, and that's what they did to replace that. But there was numerous cracks in there. We found out that there was some root intrusion that kind of heaved some of the path, and then some of the edges of that path were actually only poured to 3 inches. So right now it's a solid 5 all the way through. And we're going to be cleaning up that entire area because we do have irrigation along the edge of that path. Just clean up that, the perimeters, make it a little more optically pleasing instead of just whatever's there right now.
Any other similar pathway renovations planned in the near future?
Well, we're taking a look at some bumps and rises just due to root. Roots are pulling up panels, and there's small cracks. If the path is cracked but it's smooth, we tend to leave it. But once concrete starts chipping out and we start losing bigger areas of panels, those will be replaced.
Okay. All right, good. John, once again, thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you next podcast.
Sure. Thanks, Jim.
All right. Thanks again, John.
Okay.
Now, don't forget to send me those questions. That makes this podcast go. So remember, send them to this email address right up here. Thanks again for your help. Or you can add your questions below in the comment field. And don't forget to give me some likes.